Good morning, David.
Good morning, Salim.
David, how can innovation enhance risk management practices?
Yes, I know innovation is a particular personal interest of yours. You were director of the Academic Innovation Assistant Program for, I think, 5 years.
Yes.
So you know a lot about innovation, and maybe you can also contribute to this discussion.
Definitely.
But it seems to me that there are two areas within the risk management process where we particularly need to be innovative or creative. The first of those is in identifying risks. So when we need to think outside the box, think creatively, think about things that have never happened before, uncertainties that might affect the achievement of our objectives, we do need to think widely. And if we always think in the same way about our projects and our businesses and our enterprises and our decisions, then we'll be always repeating the same mistakes, and we'll not be seeing the risks, both threats and opportunities, that could either hurt us or help us. So we do need to look more widely than usual when we're identifying risks. And clearly we need to innovate our risk identification processes. A lot of organizations just focus only on what they call brainstorming. It's not really brainstorming. We just put people together in a room and we ask them the question, what are the risks? And it's not real brainstorming. It's just people talking together. Real brainstorming, as you know, has a set of guidelines and rules and principles and a process. But just putting people together in a room and expecting them to talk together and find the risks is not very creative, so we need more innovative risk identification approaches. And I think that would include visualization and appreciative inquiry, constructive conversations, perhaps the use of technology to support us in finding risks that we couldn't otherwise see. And we'll talk a little bit about artificial intelligence later on. So innovation in risk identification approaches, I think, is really important if we're to see the wide range of risks that we're actually exposed to. And there are constantly new types of risk arising, so we need to have risk identification methods that will find them. The second area where we must innovate is in risk response development. So the ability to plan responses which are appropriate to the risks that we've identified and prioritized. And if we always do the same things, then if there are new types of risk arising and we only have the same responses available to us in our toolkit, then it's likely that we won't be able to manage those new types of risk effectively. So we need to innovate in our risk responses to think about appropriate, unique ways to deal with unique types of risks. And as we find different sorts of risk through our innovative risk identification techniques, then we need to plan specific targeted responses through innovative risk response planning approaches.
So it's a sort of evolving of ways and tools which can really be compatible with new risk.
Yes, that's right. I mean, in the old days, and when I first started, we only tried to do brainstorming. And then we learned how to develop checklists and questionnaires. And then we learned how to do data mining and document review and keyword searches and looking for particular types of terms in our contracts or our technical specifications which indicated uncertainty. Then we learned how to use Delphi groups. And then we learned how, different interpersonal group dynamics to expose uncertainty. And then we discovered people-based risks, and we had to think about psychology and ways of exposing people's underlying motives. And then we found about technical risks, and some technical risks required specialist technical analytical processes to expose them. And then for response planning, we used to just try and mitigate everything. Well, of course, when we discovered opportunities, positive risks, you can't mitigate an opportunity, you want to capture an opportunity. Yeah. Or enhance it. So we needed to innovate our response strategies. And then thinking about things like real options development, or thinking about the use of multivariate criteria analysis to develop risk responses. Some of these new techniques which have been tried are all innovations that have been introduced in the last 20 years to the risk process.
So is that sensible to talk about, now we are talking about how risk management can benefit from innovation?
Yes.
Is that possible to talk about how innovation can benefit from risk management?
Yes, absolutely. That's a completely different subject. And in fact, only last month in Kuwait, I was presented a new keynote speech on risk-based innovation with some new ideas that I developed over the last 2 or 3 years, with the idea that innovation is about developing something new and better, which is useful and profitable.
Yes.
And so you're doing something which has never been done before, and you innovate, and very often you'll reach an innovation barrier where you can't go any further for technical reasons or for resource reasons or for all sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. And when we hit the barrier, often amateur innovators give up. What we have to do is to press through the barrier, reflect on why we were stopped, what stopped us developing further, learn some lessons and persist until we break through into a new innovation. And the idea that innovation has a phase of cycles, an innovation cycle, and you innovate and develop and consolidate until you reach a barrier. And then you have a reflection and learning cycle and persist until you reach a breakthrough. And so we could use opportunity management to support the innovation cycle, where we're being creative and finding new ways of solving problems and new ways of applying existing technologies. That's opportunity management. When we hit the barrier and we're stopped from innovating further, then we can focus on the threats. What was it that stopped us, and how can we remove those things or mitigate them or reduce them until we reach a new breakthrough? So risk-based innovation uses risk thinking to say, in the up part, in the positive part of the innovation loop, we focus on opportunity management. In the negative part of the opportunity loop, we focus on threat management, so that we maximize our times in actual innovation.
Yes.
And we minimize our times in that learning loop and get back to innovation.
Very interesting relationship between innovation and risk management.
I think it is, yes.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.